If you aren't careful, products like this one right here can ruin your Amazon business. So in this video, I'm gonna break down why that product is a bad buy for your Amazon business. And I'm also gonna break down several other examples of products that I see beginners get tripped up on all the time. But if you're brand new to the channel, my name is Warner Fields from Fields of Profit. I'm a full-time 7-figure Amazon seller. And on my way to becoming a full-time Amazon seller, I made a lot of bad buys. You're probably gonna make some bad buys as well, but my goal in this video is that you're gonna be avoiding bad buys way more than I was able to. But before I break down those examples to save you some money, if you're looking for even more free resources to learn how to sell on Amazon, there's going to be a link beneath me for our completely free Amazon seller Discord community. There's over 45,000 people in there sharing a ton of free information. Would love to see you in there. Let's go ahead and jump into the video. So let's just jump right into it here. We're going to be breaking down some of these listings and you'll see why you need to avoid products like this. Super common beginner mistakes I see people make, so I want you to avoid all those. So let's just start with this first beginner mistake I see all the time. So in this case, we've got this makeup palette. In this case, it looks like we're able to sell it for about $39 right now, and we were buying this for $22. So not too bad, right? You're making $8 a unit, 36% ROI. But let me show you why this would be a bad idea for you to buy in your Amazon business. So as we're going down here, this is called a Keepa chart, by the way. SellerAmp, Keepa, these are both like less than 20 bucks a month. If you're brand new, I would highly suggest you get both of these. You don't really need anything else beyond that though. So let's see on the Keepa chart why this is a bad idea. So back here in March, you can see that there was 5 people selling on this listing down here on the bottom graph, right? And then up here on the top, you can see that the buy box, when they come in here, they click add to cart, it's going to be $50. Pretty decent, right? Selling for a pretty high price point. And as more and more sellers have started to sell on this listing, the price has started to drop a little bit, but in my opinion, this price is still going to drop a ton. And if you were to buy a product like this one, your profits are going to get slashed because the competition is increasing way too fast. So the reason that I kind of think that in this case, like back here, you can see, today the price is about $39, about $40 or so. Back here, the price was still about $40 right around here, March 26th, when there was 13 sellers on it. Today, there's 23 sellers on it. And if you're thinking in simple economics here, right? Supply and demand. If supply is 10 extra sellers and the demand is pretty much the same, see this green sales rank chart here, staying pretty much the same. It's not really selling any faster, not really selling any slower. So something's got to give, right? And in this case, that equilibrium price, like that price that this item is going to be selling for, is going to be decreasing in this case. So another thing that I like to do on these listings is kind of zoom out, get a little bit of perspective. And there might actually be an example of where this price is about to go right back down to. So you can see back in December, there was 1 seller on this listing. There were 2 sellers on this listing in November, and it was about a $40 item. As soon as maybe it went on sale or something like that, maybe it was, a very similar sale to one we were looking at. As soon as it went on sale, lots of sellers hopped on it, and it went from 1 seller all the way up to 13 sellers, and the price dropped by over $10. See, it went from $43 in the buy box up here all the way down to like $31. Seems like it got down into the 31 range. And so what that tells me, if I want to buy this product today, is that based on the recent increase in sellers and the lack of movement in the demand on this item, the price of this item is going to fall. And let's say, in this case, back in the past, the price ended up dropping down to that $31 price point. In this case, we're not at all interested in selling this item for $31. We're going to make $1 in profit by the time you think about a prep center or, any labels or any time that you put into this item. You don't want to be making $1 a unit. So this to me seems like a trap of an item here. I also see a lot of newer sellers talking about price tanking. Oh, my items, as soon as I buy them, the price drops. 9 times out of 10, that type of price tanking is going to be avoidable. And it's just looking for very simple patterns in the items you're sourcing. This is a classic example of increasing sellers and the price has not reacted yet. This is going to be the type of product that falls in price. A beginner might still hop on this item. So if you're seeing a lot of price tanking, maybe start to dig a little bit deeper into these Keepa charts, see if you can start to notice stuff like this. But let's also go ahead and talk about the next super common mistake that I see sellers making. So in this case, we've got a pair of Nike shorts. Let's say you're buying these for $12 a pair. Right now they're selling for $28. And SellerAmp's telling us that this entire listing is selling 8,800 times a month. That's crazy, right? So it's also just another clarifier there that this is always split between all variations on a listing. I know that trips up some beginners where they're like, man, these orange shorts are really selling really fast. They're selling 8,000 times a month. Don't factor that. Make sure you're aware that this is the listing as a whole. And so the reason why I want to show you this is on examples like this. I know a lot of people get scared of variations in clothing and that kind of stuff, but there's actually a relatively simple way to see if this item is actually selling, and it's using the variations tab of Keepa down here. You can also use variations on SellerAmp. I just typically prefer to do it this way. So I'll go up into SellerAmp, I'll grab my ASIN. If you don't have SellerAmp, I guess you could, double click up there and copy it there. But from there, all you're going to want to do is go down to ASIN, contains, and then I'll just paste that in there just to quickly quickly find that single variation. And then in this case, the reason why I pulled this as an example, you can see that there are 0 ratings for this item and the ratings history is blank because there's never been a rating on this item, right? What that tells me is that since no one has ever reviewed this item, no one's ever even left a 1 star saying they hated it, this item probably isn't going to be selling super well, if at all. And when you compare that to items, let's see what's on the top of this list here. Something like this, you know, a very classic black and white pair of shorts. This is something you'll see on a ton of listings, especially if you're selling a lot of clothes and stuff like that, is like the boring styles. That type of stuff tends to do a little bit better. You can see how fast the ratings count has increased. So it's gone from like 1,000 ratings all the way up to like 1,100 ratings. So there's been almost 100 new ratings on this size and this color alone. So this one's selling super fast. This particular color, this particular size is not selling at all. So make sure you check out the variations tab of those items before you go ahead and buy the item. In this case, you would not have wanted to hop on here, man, I'm going to buy, 100 of these. They're really selling fast, and have them not sell at all. So make sure you check out the variations tab before you pull the trigger on anything like that. Make sure it's got some ratings history. And especially right here on this Keepa chart, I usually like to look for recent action in this chart here. So for example, this guy right here looks like it does currently have 74 feedback, which is a good amount, but there's only been like 2 in the last 30 days. So I might go a little bit more cautious with that versus one of these items up here that is actively gaining way more ratings. So definitely just keep that in mind. Like, how many ratings has this item recently gotten can kind of correlate to how fast it might be selling, help you understand if that item's actually worth pulling the trigger on or not. So this next item here that ends up tripping up plenty of Amazon sellers is something like this, right? So we were able to source this for about $9.50 each, currently selling for $24 a piece for just this kind of serving bowl or something like that. On the Keepa chart down here, you can see even back in the past, seems like it was selling for a little bit less money. So you wouldn't be all over that, right? It's not a home run item by any means, but you're still making a couple bucks. Like, it's not the worst case if the item goes back down a little bit. So what's wrong with this item, right? If it's currently going for 25, most of everything, or 24, I guess in this case, yeah. Most everything else looks decent about this item, but the real kicker for me on this item is that it's just way too breakable. So this Corel is kind of some more fragile dishware, that kind of thing. Sometimes you'll see like jars of pickles or really just straight up like glasses, that kind of stuff. Breakable items, I try to avoid those as much as possible. Or in this case, if we were to pull the trigger on something like this, at least make the ROI, make the profit worth the risk. So in this case, we're buying them for $9.50, selling for $24. Right now, it's okay. If we look at like average prices and stuff, you can see that it would only be like a 30% ROI. So for me to be interested in wanting to pull the trigger on an item like this, I would probably be looking for, maybe it's consistently selling for like 26 bucks or so, or at least 50% ROI. Like really whatever you're kind of happy with, whatever's worth taking that gamble for you. For me, I'm looking usually for like 50, ideally like 60+% ROI for me to pull the trigger on something that might require a little bit of extra prep work. In this case, you might have to bubble wrap this, or depending on how it comes packaged, you want to be thinking about all that kind of stuff. But really, I would advise you to be careful pulling the trigger on breakable items, especially if it's not more profit to make it worth the risk. So this next red flag listing I want to go ahead and break down for us is a popcorn listing in this case. I think we were sourcing this for $9.75, something around there. It was about 10 bucks. And in this case, looks like today we're able to sell this item for $28. We even talked about this a little bit earlier on. Let me know if you can probably already identify what the issue might be here in this case. On an item like this, we can see that last in March, there were 2 sellers on it selling for 39 bucks. A little bit later, there were 6 sellers on it selling for 34 bucks. And now all of a sudden the seller count is rapidly spiking and the price is still $33. So easy red flag there to be on the lookout for. The price is way higher than it has been in the past, especially given the number of new sellers. So you can even see in this case, right around last time this happened, right? Price went all the way back down to like 25 bucks, as low as 20 bucks. And so over here on SellerAmp, sometimes you can use like the 30-day, 90-day buy box price to get an idea of how kind of consistent this kind of stuff has been. Seems like here in the past, the brand has also been selling on this item. So you can see Jolly Time, same guys that made the item, were selling on this item as recently as like a month ago. So there might also be some IP complaint concerns here. It's usually not a good idea to sell on a listing where the brand themselves have sold on it. If you made this listing, you made the product, you'd probably want to kick off your competitors as well. So a couple red flags here. Increasing sellers and the brand themselves have sold on it recently. I would definitely recommend avoiding products like this one unless you're just flushed with cash. Another red flag listing to be on the lookout for is items like this one right here. So I use a pretty simple tool here called IP Alert. This tool embeds just like a little siren, or on these other items we've been looking at. So in this case, just a little green check mark on any item that you're looking at on Amazon. And in this case, this little red siren here is indicating that sellers in the past have gotten an IP complaint from selling Kong products. The brand has said, hey, you're not an authorized seller. We want to kick you off this listing. A lot of times you are able to beat this. Like we use online invoices, online receipts to beat these all the time, but it still causes a headache and sometimes you can get stuck with inventory. So you want to avoid IP complaints as much as possible. I use this simple Chrome extension called IP Alert. You can save 30 bucks on it down below, especially if you're a brand new seller. I would recommend having something like that for your business. Going to be kind of on the lookout for. It's going to be a good guide for your business, especially when you're not familiar with a lot of these brands. Because another thing that sometimes can be helpful on these Keepa charts is you'll see, 50 sellers on a listing, and then the next day there's 20 sellers, right? Or they kicked a bunch of sellers off. In this case, if you're looking at this new listing and you're a brand new seller, there's not a lot to indicate here that this would be an IP complaining listing. A lot of times we're looking for, was there one seller on it all the time? Is there a big cliff in the number of sellers? Did they kick a bunch of people off? In this case, it looks kind of normal, right? Just a little bit of suppliers jumping in and off, like nothing too crazy here. No one's going and getting kicked off all at once. And so I would recommend having a tool like this just to go ahead and be on the lookout for you with those IP complaints. I also like that this tool is just a one-time payment. So if you want to save $30, I've got a code down below, especially if you're a brand new seller. I would recommend checking that one out. The next example of kind of red flags to be on the lookout for is something like this, where down here on the Keepa chart, we can see this, the orange box down here is showing us when Amazon has been on this listing. In the past, it looks like Amazon has kind of dominated things. Usually you're going to want to avoid competing with Amazon. And in this case, I see another trap that a lot of beginners fall into is that just because Amazon is selling on it today doesn't necessarily mean that they are going to come back. So you can see that like orange on the Keepa down there has gone away, which means Amazon is no longer selling on the listing. Realistically, they've probably just gone out of stock or something like that. And you can see these third-party FBA sellers starting to make some sales. This type of listing would be a pretty major trap. Another thing that you can be on the lookout for is going into data and then buy box statistics. And once we do this, we'll be able to see that over the last 30 days, Amazon has hogged a huge percentage of the sales. So you can see that right here, that over the last 30 days, Amazon has had 92% of the sales on this listing. This other store has had 4%. And I would imagine they're only making sales because Amazon's out of stock right now. If Amazon comes back into stock and you're in stock on this type of item, it might take you forever to be able to sell out. So be careful on listings where Amazon's selling. Usually they're not going to share sales with you as a third-party seller. And I would highly recommend checking out data, buy box statistics, and seeing, is this an item where Amazon might be sharing sales? Is this something I can compete on? Because a lot of times when you see an item that Amazon is on, it scares away a lot of beginners. And I've actually had great success on listings where Amazon is currently selling on it, but they're also sharing sales with third-party sellers. So be on the lookout for that. It's kind of a golden nugget for you guys here towards the end. So another thing to look out for as you're sourcing is to always make sure that you have the exact same item. And a lot of times some of these things might be a little bit confusing. So this was our source for this certain item here. This is the item over here on Amazon. They look very, very similar, but you can probably spot a little bit of a difference here where this one is like the high fiber kind and this one is not. In this case, it's a little bit more obvious, why this might be an item we're not super interested in. Profit on this looked pretty decent. It's selling for about $32 on average. The new offer count isn't going too crazy. It's a little high given where it is in the past, but at least it's not spiking and going crazy. But when we're really looking at this item, that immediately obvious kind of high fiber thing there. But even if it wasn't super obvious, another thing I'll try to do is go through the rest of these pictures. In this case, I don't know if we have it, but on a lot of these items, you're going to be able to see like nutrition facts. So in this case, we've got the full label here. And a lot of times that same label will be available over here on the Amazon listing. So I'll compare and make sure that, all the macros are all the same on this food. Sometimes you'll even be able to see like the true ingredients in the product, or one of the pictures might have like a UPC barcode in it. We could see if one of these does here. So no UPC in this case, but a lot of times you might be able to validate, is that the same item? Because usually SellerAmp's going to list the UPC up there, and then there might be a UPC on the item. So just be on the lookout for that. Check nutrition facts, check ingredient labels, check UPCs, anything you can do to validate that the item is in fact the same thing. Because a lot of times there's going to be some serious profits where maybe this is just an old packaging look for this Quaker oatmeal, and this is the new packaging look. There could be some serious opportunity in products like that, but it's important to validate that it is the same thing. So check those ingredients, check those UPCs, all that good stuff. So I really hope this video helped save you some money out making bad buys when you're sourcing products. If you're not 100% certain on where you should even start sourcing products for your Amazon business, I've made tons of videos. You can go check this one out right here to break down one of my favorite strategies for sourcing products for your business. If you guys did get value out of today's video, if you want to add some of that value back to my business and hit that subscribe button, I would really appreciate that. If you guys have any questions, comments, drop those down below in the comment section. I'm always happy to answer those. But I really appreciate you guys watching, and I will see you next time.